Let's solve these quadratic equations. First one, q times q plus 8 is equal to 15. Notice that this is not equal to 0, so we're not going to set each factor to 0. We're going to use the distributive property and clear out the parentheses. Q squared plus 8q is equal to negative 15. Now we're going to try and make this equation equal to 0 by adding 15 to both sides of the equation. We now have q squared plus 8q plus 15 is equal to 0. Now we can try and use the zero product property by factoring this so that we can try and get a q alone. No way to do that with these two q's since one's squared and one's not. To factor, we break down the first term, put it in the front of both parentheses, and we break down the last term. We have a couple of choices there, 1 and 15, 3 and 5. We'll go with the end of the list, 3 and 5. The signs are the same. They're both pluses. Then we can set each of these factors equal to 0. So this q plus 5 could equal 0, or this q plus 3 could equal 0. And again, I stress that or because we're going to have two different answers. We can add negative 5 to this equation on both sides. And on this equation, we can add a negative 3 to both sides. So our two answers are q equals negative 5 and q equals negative 3. Now I said and, I just meant that that was the second one. This is an or statement. It's a union. I want both answers that work. Negative 5 would make this equation true, and also negative 3 would make this equation true. So to include both those answers, we must say or. Again, here we have a situation where we've got x plus 4 times x minus 1 is equal to 14. It's not equal to 0. Since it's not equal to 0, we're going to go ahead and use the distributive property. For this, I multiply the first one to both things in the second parenthesis, and I multiply the 4 to both things in the second set of parentheses. And then I'll clean that up and see what I have. X squared plus 3x minus 4 is equal to 14. What I really want is it to equal to 0. So I can add a negative 14 to both sides of the equation, making that equal to 0. X squared plus 3x minus 18 is equal to 0. So again, since we have more than one variable, we can't get those together. We can't isolate it because there's the them. We'll go ahead and factor, breaking down the first term in the front of the parentheses, breaking down the last term. Ooh, lots of choices there. 1 and 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6, 4 doesn't go, 5 doesn't go, 6 is my list. So those are all my possibilities. I like to start at the end of the list with the 3 and the 6. I notice the signs are going to be different, but the result needs to be positive. So if I make the 6 positive and the 3 negative, that should work for me. Now that it's factored and it's equal to 0, then that means one of these factors, either this x minus 3 has to equal 0 or this x plus 6 equals 0. And then solving these equations, we can add 3 to both sides of this equation, and we can add a negative 6 to both sides of that equation. So our final answer for this equation is x is equal to 3 or x is equal to negative 6. So two different possibilities.